Hey guys, Nate from Richard's Guitar Studio, and today we're going to do a combination technique and theory lesson on the modes. And I'm going to do a series of these so that we can cover all the modes. The first thing is that I'm just going to give you the scales, and you practice them the way that you do other scales. By the way, open the link. You're going to need it in the description there. You're going to need to have the tabs in front of you for this lesson. So practice the scales how you normally do, maybe with a metronome, or hammer-ons and pull-offs. Maybe you practice alternate picking, sequences, some sort of patterns or whatever. However you practice them to get them under your fingers. In the future, I'm going to put up a how to practice scales and 5 to 10 items on how to do that, but for right now you just got to get the scales memorized under your fingers. So a few technique pointers. You see that on the tabs there. I had the G Ionian Scale and the A Dorian Scale, and we're just going to cover those two. The G Ionian starts with a pretty big stretch, 3, 5, 7, and I want you to do that with fingers 1, 2, and 4 rather than 1, 3, and 4. And if you're having trouble stretching, it's usually a hand position problem. So the best way to correct that is to put your pinky just by itself on 7, pinky on the 7th fret, and then you reach back with your second finger to play the 5th fret and just hold it there, hold those two fingers, and then reach back for the 3rd fret with your first finger. So there's a big gap in here. Your wrist is straight or slightly bent, like mine, and then the thumb is going to be flat on the back like this and not up like this, because if you have it like that, it's not going to work. So you have your pinky and then you reach back with the other two, and that's going to set your hand position up properly. Another way to think about this is if you put your fingers in 4th position, frets 4, 5, 6, and 7, so that they're all evenly spaced, and then just reach back with 1. So essentially this stretch position is in 4th position, but we're reaching back for 3. Rather than thinking of it in 3rd position, reaching up for 7, because the 3rd and 4th fingers are smaller and weaker, and it's harder for them to do that. So if you think of it the other way, reaching back for 1, it's going to be better. So try like hammer-ons and pull-offs. And if you can do that, then you know you have the right hand position. You're not going to be going like that. So the scale, 3, 5, set. It's a very symmetrical scale. 3, 5, 7 for the first 2 strings. And then these fingers kind of stay where they are positioning wise, and your first finger comes over to the 4th fret for the next 2 strings. 4, 5, 7. 4, 5, 7. Then you're going to slide over to the 5th fret and do 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8 with your 1st, 3rd, and 4th fingers. So 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8. And then again, do your drills that you normally do on scales. Hopefully you have normal drills that you do on scales. Everybody's practicing scales. So once you have that down, then we're going to do the A Dorian. You're going to notice this starts where the 2nd finger was on the G Ionian scale. Your first finger goes there on the 5th fret. All right, so we're starting on the 5th fret. And this scale starts off 5, 7, 8. It's okay to do fingers 1, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3 with a stretch. The reason is the next 3 strings are all stretched. So it's okay to start that way, stretched out. 1, 2, 3. So the next 3 strings are 5, 7, 9. 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9. Same thing before with the big gap here. 1, 2, 4, stretch. So 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9. The last 2 strings you're going to jump up 2 frets to the 7th fret. 7, 8, 10. 7, 8, 10 again. 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 7, 8, 10, 7, 8, 10. And again, do all drills on that scale until you have it memorized. One other more interesting way to do it, I guess, is just to go up one and down the next. Or the other way. Notice how, since I have that hand position thing set up, my arm really isn't moving much. I'm just moving my fingers. Alright, so it's nice and stable, so if I want to go faster, there you go. If I want to go faster and practice it faster, then I can. So they are the scales. So the next thing you want to know about the modes is the chord. So we're going to learn the modes in the key of G. G major has 1 sharp, F sharp. All the other notes are natural. So it goes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. 7 notes in the scale. Every one of those notes is going to get a chord that goes along with it. Some are major, some are minor, and one is the oddball diminished. So those chords are G major, and then A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and then the oddball F sharp diminished. All of these chords are tabbed out on the sheet that you should have open up or printed out or whatever. So it's on the 3rd line of that sheet, all those chords. If you don't have these chords memorized yet, then don't do this lesson. Go practice your chords and then come back. Except for the F sharp diminished, nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but it's not as used often. Okay. There are actually a lot of substitutions you can use for that one. Anyway, so the line underneath that, it says to make a song, quote, in the key of G, you need to have a progression that starts on G and then creatively makes use of the other chords in the scale and then finishes on G. So it's sort of like G is your home base chord and you use the chords that fit with the scale. So a common one, 1, 5, 6, 4, in this key would be G, D, E minor, and C. And if you look at that line of chords that I have on the sheet, you'll notice that all those fit, they belong in the key. So if I were to do something like G and then D minor, then that doesn't fit in the key of G. If you like the sound, that's cool. You just then have to figure out what key that would be in, and it's in a different key. Eventually we'll get good at doing that. But for right now, we just want to stick with one key and master one key. So, okay, so what makes a song in the key of G? You start on G, you do a progression from the key, so let's do another one like G, A minor, C, D. Alright, all those 4 chords, and then you make up a strumming pattern. There you go, you have a song in the key of G. So on the second page, I have a progression here from a pop song, which is a little out of character for me, but the reason I like to use pop songs as an example, or 80s rock songs for the same reason, is that they usually stick with one key. They don't do a bunch of key changes like progressive metal or something like that, where they're always doing these odd chords. They sort of stick with one key and that's it. So this one is Keep Holding On by Avril Lavigne. So that's a good example of a chord progression in the key of G. What I recommend that you do is use GarageBand or Audacity or something like that and record yourself playing that progression and then solo over it using that G Ionian scale. So Ionian and major, they mean the same thing. And I guess I should have said that earlier, but Ionian is just the Greek modal term for major. So Ionian, major, whatever you want to call it, it's the same scale, same thing. So, or you could just go turn on that song and solo along with it, or you could look up on YouTube G major backing track, find a backing track in a style that you like, and then use that scale to solo creatively. Whatever it is over that song. The next thing, this is where it gets a little bit more confusing, is where when you're trying to do a song in A Dorian. So A Dorian, the only difference between G major and A Dorian is the fact that you're making A minor, which is the 2 chord. If you look at that sheet, the where it says the chords in the key of G, there at the bottom of the first page, you're just starting on the 2 chord, and then you do some other chords from the key of G, and then you finish on the 2 chord. In this case, that's A minor. And there you have it. You have a song in A Dorian. So my example on the second page, the bottom of the second page, is the chords are similar to Hurt by Johnny Cash. Sounds like this. They're also the chords from Tangerine. There's a G in that one as well. So that whole A minor is the home bass chord, right? But he's using all of the chords from the key of G major. So in order to make a song in A Dorian, you have G major as this like overall parent key, this like blanket key, and then you just start, instead of starting on G major as your home bass chord, you start on A minor as your home bass chord, and then use the other chords. Like, let's say we wanted to do the 4 chord, which is C, and the 5 chord, which is D, and maybe even the 1 chord, which is G. You can make a song out of that. And now my song is in A Dorian. I'm still playing the same exact notes and the same exact chords from the key of G. All I'm doing is starting on the A minor chord. So record that or search A Dorian backing track on YouTube and play your A Dorian scale and solo. And after you get that in your ear, here's it to make it even more complicated. Let's go back to our G major progression. And you can play, since G major and A Dorian, and subsequently B Phrygian, C Lydian, D Mixolydian, E Aeolian, F sharp Locrian, all of those modes belong with the G major family. So once you learn those, now that you have 2, if you're playing in the key of G, you can play any of those scales because they all have the same notes. 1 F sharp, all the other ones are natural notes. No other sharps or flats. So if you're doing a song in G major, you can use your G Ionian scale or G major scale, whatever you want to call it, the A Dorian, the B Phrygian, C Lydian. All of these different scales, you can still use those because they belong to the same family. The only reason they're called G Ionian, A Dorian, and B Phrygian on the guitar is a positioning concept, and we'll kind of get to that later. But to teach you how this works, you have to hear it. So put on a song in the key of G, solo with your G Ionian scale, and then continue soloing with A Dorian over that G major, and it's still going to sound like you're in the key of G, simply because the chord progression has a home bass of a G major chord. Then reverse it, do the same thing, put on an A Dorian, not A minor, it's different. A Dorian backing track, and then play both your A Dorian and your G major scales. And you'll notice that even your G major fingering is going to seem like it sounds like in A Dorian, simply because the chord progression has a home base of A minor, and it's going to get that into your ear. All right. So nobody, if somebody isn't watching you, they can't tell if you're playing on this position or this. I mean, they're the same notes, but they can't tell you where. They can't tell where you're playing. So the point is that the notes are all going to sound the same. This one just has a low G, and this one has a high D. But if I play the scales, oh, sorry. They're the same, literally the same notes. So, okay, so that's something you have to experience with your ear. Maybe I'll try to center around G major. I'm going to play in my Dorian mode though. Still sounds like a G major, just because of the kind of the way I played the notes. And then A minor, or A Dorian, sorry. I'll even play in my G Ionian. So it still sounds A Dorian, simply because of the chord. All right. If that last part lost you, the only way to figure this out is to find a G major backing track and play both of those scales and just listen to how all the notes, it doesn't sound any different when you're up here in Dorian than it does when you're down here in Ionian, because they're all the same letters. And then vice versa, find an A Dorian backing track and use both the scales as well. Then the next lesson we do, we'll have B Phrygian and C Lydian, and you could do, again, the same thing. You know, you could even look up a C Lydian scale right now. Go look it up, learn a C Lydian scale, put on a G major backing track, and it's going to sound like it fits. E minor is the same key as G major. Go find an E minor scale, learn it, play over a G major backing track, or an A Dorian backing track, or a C Lydian backing track. All these things, they work together. So eventually, you'll only need to know 7 scales. You'll know how they all relate to one another. And then once the theory makes sense, it's going to be cloudy for a couple months. But then once it starts to make sense to your ear and how it works on the fretboard, it's so much easier to play. You don't have to memorize 1,000 scales. It's not necessary. There's giant books of scales that people try to sell you. There's no point. You know, there's only so many ways you can play a scale on the fretboard, and it's very limited actually. So, okay, have fun with that one. Comments, questions below, and your main thing, practice the technique, of memorizing the scales and working your drills on the scales, and then find a G major and A Dorian backing track, play them, hear how they sound, and we'll continue next time. Talk to you later.